So will we not get there until we have a carbon price, and how do we build the public will for bolder action? Rachel?
Well, I think that, Copenhagen revealed that there is not sufficiently large or global enough a consensus to get a long-term price for carbon. Do we need a long-term price for carbon? Yes. Would that have the biggest, most explosive effect on change? Yes. In the absence of that, then I think that's why we move back to a building block approach. One thing I would say, I think one of the highlights, or the silver linings of Copenhagen, silver lining, is that it did, I think, mark the end of what I called carbon fundamentalism. Where everything was sort of piled on, what the carbon markets will be able to do, and that just got more and more sort of abstract as we got closer to Copenhagen. I think the failure of that, actually, the failure of Copenhagen pushed everybody back to sustainable development and what can I do and how can I move forward because I have to, because I have a long-term view of my business, I have a long-term view of my community. I think that's a good thing. But I think that we should be pretty sanguine about an uprising of global public support as the driver of this. I've been involved since Rio as well, and my experience of the ebb and flow of messaging around sustainability and why it's in your short-term interest to do something that's really in your long-term interest is that it ebbs and flows. And there was an enormous crescendo of public attention up to Copenhagen, and then, something of a crisis around messaging as there were the attacks on the science. I don't think it's going to be quick. I don't think it's easy to get that back again. I think we're now on an ebbing, and then we'll come back. Maybe it's Rio, maybe it's later. And so I think you have to, say that would be desirable. That's not going to be there. And I think it's important that we work on these short-term things that we can do in pieces of the building blocks. Can we get something approximating red? Because we know that 80% of the governments agree. Maybe a couple big ones don't. But what can we do? Can we move forward with the 80% that do, and then start private sector solutions to forestry and start seeing markets grow? Can we do something about adaptation technology and the movement of technology into emerging markets, and a few regulatory ideas there? 80% of the world agree. Okay, there's 20 that don't. Why don't the 80% that agree move forward? And I think the Mexicans have got a very clear vision around that, and I think that then you give something for public opinion to hold on to, and then maybe we start to see that flow of public opinion coming back up again.
Now, I know that everyone by now is dying for a cup of coffee and a little break, but I think we have time for just one last question, and then we'll wrap up.
Me too.
Lady back there.
Thank you so much. My name is Catherine Cunningham, and I'm the executive producer of Ecosphere Productions. We are working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and 3 leading production companies in Mexico to produce the 3D short feature to open COP16. And the key message of this film is really to showcase the importance of valuing natural capital and in celebration of this green movement forward. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Daniel Service and his commentary on focus on Reforestemos, and really a company that is focused on valuing and protecting natural resources. My question is to the rest of the panel, are there other very specific initiatives in which you're engaged in that are directly related to protection of natural resources? Thank you.
Daniel, if you want to comment on that, or Renavo.
Can you summarize that question?
How are your companies valuing natural capital and viewing the natural resources that you tap? Maybe Renavo and Klaus.
Yep.
Good.
You want me to start? On natural capital, I think that's absolutely the right question to ask, to really broaden the focus just beyond just climate change, because it is really about natural capital more holistically. And we are, together with Walmart Asta, of which you're a board member, Daniel, at the beginning of the year, a new initiative starting in the UK with the University of Cambridge program for sustainability leadership on natural capital, where we want to really, and it's in preparation also now to Rio plus 20 in a couple of years' time, to put on the agenda of the world's leader that we have to look at natural capital much more holistically. I mean, one of the one of the issues today is a forest standing counts as 0 GDP, but as soon as you cut that forest down, then it is transformed into GDP. But there isn't a global kind of balance sheet where this loss of natural capital would be accounted for. So I think we really need to look even at the traditional accounting systems of companies, and in a way to extrapolate that to a global system where we're not just having the profit and loss statement that looks at cutting down the forest, but also from a balance sheet kind of view, where we see what we're losing that will no longer be available for future generations.
Our approach has been that any of our manufacturing facilities have been in areas which were totally deserted. So when we went there, one of the first things we did was to start on a tree plantation programs. And we have many good examples where previously totally places where there were not even a blade of grass now actually look like forests. And this is something which we intend to do further.
Thank you. We had a pretty wide-ranging discussion, I'd say. Just to wrap up, I think there was a broad consensus that while we do continue to need political leadership, absolutely. There's no doubt about that, both at the international level and at the domestic level. That business is nonetheless forging ahead, that business isn't going to wait. The key thing, though, is, as one of our panelists said, we're in internal competition for capital. We have to show that our investments in the low-carbon economy are better than the other opportunities that we have. And that's where we need government to step in, as Rachel said, help change the risk-reward equation and help make it attractive and profitable to invest and innovate. But business is also taking steps outside of government to increase transparency. We talked a bit about corporate reporting, accounting for natural capital, that there's a lot that we can do to shine a bright light on the opportunities that we have. So I hope you'll join me in giving a very warm round of applause to our panelists, and let me turn it over to our moderator.
Thank you.